individual. And the majority of the time, the worst way to do it is say, man, get your ass up and go to the principal's office. You're disturbing my class. Well, when he goes to the principal's office, I don't want to talk at all to no one. Remember my story, the first time when I was at the principal's office, I was there for fighting. I wasn't there because I was embarrassed about what happened between me and my mother. Imagine if somebody would have addressed that part of me. What if an individual would have told me, you know what, Reggie, I know you're feeling angry right now, but true enough, I know today that anger is a secondary emotion, but the initial emotion was embarrassment. Imagine if a teacher would have addressed that part of me. I don't know if I tell you that I would have spent a third of my life in prison or not. But the truth of the matter, it would have been another seed planted. And it's our job as teachers to plant as many seeds as possible. And it's so funny that I'm up here talking about basic social skills, because we've taken it for granted so long. Well, I got news for you. I've been shot 5 times. I've been in 2 riots. I received a life sentence. I lost the mother of my child, and I have a daughter who's graduating from Western New England College this month or in May. So I don't want to hear that it doesn't work. I don't want to hear that, you know what, you don't have the time. Because sometimes you're putting our kids in a position where that's all they're going to have is time in prison. Sometimes we're going to put our kids in a position that, you know what, they're going to be 6 feet under. And I understand that you guys are math teachers. I understand that you guys are history teachers. I understand that, you know, this is where your first priority is at, is academics. I understand that. But as you look at this group of kids right here, this is what I want you to understand. No matter how good they're doing in school, they still need to have a relationship with a teacher. You guys are still role models in a small form. Their bigger role models, of course, is out there on the street. So they need a little bit of something different. This is me when I first went to prison in Folsom. I was a young kid at 24. And just like as you guys are in your 20s, I assume, and some look like they might be a little younger, you guys are on your way to be a career in teaching. Man, there's like hundreds and thousands of individuals that are on their way to be inmates. And unfortunately, some of them are going to pass through you guys' classroom. And they need that small seed planted. Just a small idea. This right here is what I've always used. Our groups allow our kids to take a look at themselves. Our groups give them other areas that they can turn to when it comes to being able to give our kids something different. And sometimes, man, it's just the involvement in classroom activities. See, because you got a kid that's been sitting in the back and he never got involved in the activity, think about probably getting him to get involved in it. I mean, that's possible. That's actually something that you can do. And how do I know that? As Shannon said that, you know what, you have kids in our program and they all come back. But what she actually didn't tell you is that, man, I have a Saturday class that they volunteer on, and they still come. They still come. They're looking for support. And I know that you can't take your Saturdays off. I know that there's things that you guys have better planned to do. But I'm not talking about taking Saturdays off. I'm talking about taking 5 minutes from your day and saying thank you. Or sitting down and saying, you know what, man, I appreciate you coming to class today. I know it's been difficult. That's what I'm talking about. And I use the extreme of a kid taking away his Saturday to come sit in the group and possibly do a lot more crying than they ever did in their life. But you have to give them something else. Because, see, they're going to be a part of the community whether you like it or not. Now, whether they're going to be that parolee coming back and forth, or they're going to be that individual like myself who's going to give to the community. And we can look at every angle that you want to, because there might be some individuals today who are saying, well, and I'm looking at the majority, and I don't mean no disrespect towards anyone in here, but looking at the majority of the crowd, I see a lot of individuals who are of Caucasian descent, and bottom line is this: white, black, Mexican, a kid's going to respect the real more than anything. And how do I know? For some reason, my classrooms is always filled with Hispanics, and I don't know no Spanish at all. When I go pick up a kid and the mother might not know any English, I just be like, yeah, you know, I love him, you know? I mean, that's like basic stuff because they feel that. You know, I could be so eloquent in my Spanish and it'd be like, yeah, but if I usually say, hey, I love your kid, I'm here for him. And I just raise my hand, no Spanish. But I got him, here goes my card, you know? That's basic stuff because that's the passion. You guys are teachers. You guys should be as passionate as I am. Because you spent your whole life getting credentialed, making it a career. For me, I spent my whole life robbing, stealing, killing. Just take a look. When I first showed you these pictures, there wasn't a smile there. And now when you look at these pictures, you see kids from all over North County, from Cesar Chavez, Martin Luther King, Jefferson Middle School, Carlsbad Boys and Girls Club, East San Diego, Center Street, all the way down to San Diego. And it's funny that when you see these kids, you couldn't tell that you're looking at rival gang members. You couldn't tell that these kids lack social skills. But what you could tell is that these kids are being supportive to the point that there are smiles on their faces today. There is love in their life today. They found a different angle. I always ask the kids, what is your foundation? Why is it that you do what you do? Today, we want our kids to have integrity. We want them to have social skills. We want them to be able to respect and be honest. But for us to do that, we have to start putting the seed in ourselves. Because, look, we might have that in us, and we're going to assume that the kid has that in him. Don't assume that. Man, we're dealing with kids, man, who are being taught by their fathers how to steal. And even if the father isn't like teaching them like, hey, this is how you do this. No, the father is teaching them by doing it, and the kid is observing it. So they're getting the okay by seeing that. Just like they're seeing that from you. If you're in the classroom and you're boisterous and you're intimidating to the kid, well, that's what they know because that's what you're teaching them. And I don't want to hear that there's not no teachers who are like that. Because there's enough teachers in these classrooms who seem more like a gang member than the kids. And I just hope that none of those teachers per se are in here. Life's events, we really need to take a look at them. But more importantly, we need to take a look at what role you're ready to play into the community. Are you ready to be a math teacher, or are you ready to be a teacher? Thank you, guys.
So I want to talk about discipline, right? Here's our approach. We want to make sure no child is left behind. Everybody gets an opportunity to be disciplined. So we think about discipline, and it's interesting because all of our professional development, all of our training, credential programs, master's degrees, everything like that, really center around curriculum, instruction, assessment, and then your individual content area, right? So if I'm a math teacher, I'm going to develop my skills in math, how to deliver mathematics instruction, what curriculum to use, how to assess students. And that's really the bulk of what we are prepared for. But what scares you when you go into classrooms? That you don't know your math? That you forgot how to teach kids how to conjugate a verb in Spanish? No. What scares you is that student, right? That student that you're trying to work with them, but they don't want to work with you, or you're teaching an awesome lesson and they flip you off, or they raise their hand and say, you know, this isn't important, whatever. And those are the things that throw us off, right? Beginning teachers to veteran teachers, that is their big fear. That's the thing that we're worried about the most, is how do I interact with students that have these challenging behaviors that I have not been prepared for? And that's really, it's not our fault as teachers, it's really the fault of our institution, that who do you know that has a PhD in classroom management? Master's degree in student discipline? Nobody. But that's what we're all longing for. That's what we need. So when we think about discipline, what comes to mind? Usually we think of detention, suspension, expulsion, those challenging students, high blood pressure, right? Losing sleep at night. I used to have nightmares. My wife can tell you, she's sitting back there like, I would wake up like, kids, be quiet. She's like, what's going on, man? And so those are the things, we think about that in discipline, and I want to help us kind of reshape how we view discipline. So I'd like to start with a story. If you heard my presentations before, you've heard this story. I'm going to read it. I don't typically like to read, when I'm presenting to people, but I think this is a really good story. Some of you guys might have heard it before. It's called the story of Teddy Stoddard. So it says, there's a story many years ago of an elementary teacher. Her name was Mrs. Thompson, and as she stood in front of her 5th grade class on the very first day of school, she told the children a lie. Like most teachers, she looked at her students and said that she loved them all the same. But that was impossible, because there in the front row, slumped in his seat, was a little boy named Teddy Stoddard. Miss Thompson watched Teddy the year before and noticed that he didn't play well with the other children, that his clothes were messy and that he constantly needed a bath. And Teddy could be unpleasant. It got to the point where Miss Thompson would actually take delight in marking his papers with a broad red pen, marking bold X's and then putting an F at the top of his papers. At the school where she taught, Miss Thompson was required to review each child's past records, and she put Teddy's off until last. However, when she reviewed his file, she was in for a surprise. Teddy's 1st grade teacher wrote, "Teddy's a bright child with a ready laugh. He does his work neatly and has good manners. He's a joy to be around." His 2nd grade teacher wrote, "Teddy's an excellent student, well liked by his classmates, but he is troubled because his mother has a terminal illness and life at home must be a struggle." His 3rd grade teacher wrote, "His mother's death has been hard on him. He tries to do his best, but his father doesn't show much interest, and his home life will soon affect him if steps aren't taken." His 4th grade teacher wrote, "Teddy's withdrawn and doesn't show much interest in school. He doesn't have many friends and sometimes sleeps in class." By now, Miss Thompson realized the problem, and she was ashamed of herself. She felt even worse when her students brought her Christmas presents wrapped in beautiful ribbons and bright paper. Except for Teddy's. His present was clumsily wrapped in the heavy brown paper that he got from a grocery bag. Miss Thompson took pains to open it in the middle of the other presents. Some of the children started to laugh when she found a rhinestone bracelet with some of the stones missing and a bottle that was 1/4 full of perfume. But she stifled the children's laughter when she exclaimed how pretty the bracelet was. She put it on and dabbed some of the perfume on her wrist. Teddy Stoddard stayed after school that day just long enough to say, "Miss Thompson, today you smell just like my mom used to." After the children left, she cried for at least an hour. On that very day, she quit teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic. Instead, she began to teach children. Miss Thompson paid particular attention to Teddy. As she worked with him, his mind seemed to come alive. The more she encouraged him, the faster he responded. By the end of the year, Teddy became one of the smartest children in the class, and despite her lie that she would love all the children the same, Teddy became one of her pets. A year later, she found a note under her door from Teddy, telling her that she was still the best teacher he ever had in his whole life. 6 years went by before she got another note from Teddy. He then wrote that he had finished high school 3rd in his class, and she was still the best teacher he ever had in his whole life. 4 years after that, she got another letter, saying that while things had been tough at times, he stayed in school, stuck with it, and would soon graduate from college with the highest of honors.